Hey, welcome to the 40 Finance channel, everybody. My name's Jeff Beers. I haven't done a stock price projection video in a long time, and I got a comment the other day on this old Microsoft stock price prediction video that came out on August 27th, 2020. And the person was saying, congratulations, it's September 2022, and you were right on the money. That, of course, is pure luck, and by no means am I the Nostradamus of stocks. However, at that time, I said price for July of 2022 would fall somewhere around $257. And I did a EPS range, or PE/EPS range to make that projection. Very, very simple math. So I thought it might be fun to come in here today and revisit Microsoft and let you know, at least, from a casual standpoint, where do I think the price is going during these uncertain times. And I think that that's the key. So one of the things that I noticed during COVID was the price projection game got a heck of a lot harder because the PE ratios exploded across almost every single stock. But when I read that comment I just showed you, it got me to think like, hey, PE ratios are back down to earth, and they are likely, seemingly going lower in light of everything going on with the Fed. So maybe I should throw some darts at some price projections on this channel. As everybody knows, if you follow the channel, I'm still big on QQQ. Things are tanking, they're getting worse, but I'm in it for the long term. I think, 2, 3, 5 years from now, it's easy money to buy into something more stable like the QQQ today. That's not to say it's the best bet in the stock market, but it really is what I am focused on right now. And Microsoft, Apple, many of the other names that I talk about on this channel are huge components of the QQQ. So I'm thinking if I roll out a few price projections on some of the major components of the Qs, it might actually help me in the long run to make a more timely prediction on where the Qs are going, at least in the short term, even though at the end of the day, I'm in it for the long-term future. All right, switching over to Seeking Alpha, let's take a look at our fundamentals and try to do this price projection together. By the way, I've said it many times, Seeking Alpha is having a special sale right now in the month of September, $99 for the entire year. That includes a 7-day trial before your credit card is actually charged. So it's a really good time if you like what you see on the screen to explore Seeking Alpha. And if you follow the channel, then you know that I use this platform all the time. All right, so let's just take a look here. Year to date, here's where we are on Microsoft. 27% down for the year. The high was at 334. And if you go back to my projection, which was July, stated for July of 2022, somewhere after their earnings call, the price came in at 265, and my price was 257 that I wrote in there. So that was pretty good. The thing is, though, with this stock and many others of the mega cap stocks, right? Some of this is where fundamentals can really help you to guesstimate where some of these prices are going. The hard part usually is where the P/E ratios will land, right? The multiples that people will pay. I would say from my experience in the stock market, the earnings per share, the EPS side of the price projection tends to be the more stable one. Even when Apple or companies like Google and things like that, when they come out, they might miss EPS projections, but they generally don't miss their EPS by 50%. For example, now Amazon actually did in 2021 due to increased cost, so that threw a wrench into a lot of people's projections. But I think going forward this year, we might see EPS projections come down, and guidance from the companies, they might go from say $5 a share maybe to $4.50 a share. So you may see that type of fluctuation, but you're not going to see a company like Microsoft say that they're going to hit $5 a share and then wake up one day and they actually only hit $1 a share. It's very, very unlikely that those things are going to happen. Okay, let's take a look at the two primary factors that I look at when I make these price projections, right? And it's very simple fundamentals. It is stock price equals EPS times PE ratio. So if you had $7 a share in your forward EPS calculations and the stock traded at 20 times earnings at that point, then you'd have a stock price of $140. That's it. That's all there is to it. It sounds simple, but you do have to make assumptions. There's so many assumptions in here. First of all, the assumption from my part is it leans very heavily, and you see this tab right here, on earnings estimates. Now, the bigger the stock, the more earnings estimates that come in, right? There are more analysts that pay attention to it. And I tend to go on an annual basis. I don't really get into quarterlies. I think quarterlies are a good time to do updates on your projections, but overall you're looking for fiscal years. That's where you want to be in this game. And so if we scroll down to what will end up being the end of the next fiscal year, June of 2023, okay, June 30th of 2023, Microsoft will close their fiscal year. And then from that point, they'll report the earnings, roughly 3 or 4 weeks after that time. So again, we're talking about a July timeframe to get the readings of that report. So let's just say that this prediction is for July of 2023. July of 2023. All right. So right now, the EPS estimate, the cumulative estimate across 39 analysts, and I realize that's not showing up here. Let me scooch this in a little bit, all the way in here. All right, so number of analysts, 39. 39 analysts have put in sort of their bid as an EPS estimate for Microsoft, $10.19. Okay, now that could go a lot of different ways, but you see the range, the low, $9.88. And the high is $11.12. So depending on what your thoughts are about the economy, you might be inclined to use $9.88 or something less than that. Or if you think, even in light of the economy, Microsoft outperforms because they're basically a software as a service provider when you consider cloud and things of that nature, maybe you go on the high end. For me, just for this quick demo, I'm going to go low end because we are big time on a negative sentiment right now. And quite honestly, the consensus versus the low is only, what is that? Roughly 30 cents, 30, 40 cents, something like that. So I'll stick with this 988 number. And some of the ways you can kind of back test that 988 number, let me adjust this, is you can go back to earnings revisions, earnings surprises, all right? And you can see, this is in Seeking Alpha, obviously. You can try to get a feel for how they have performed in recent quarters. This is fiscal year, so let me switch to quarterly. How have things looked in Microsoft's land of late? Right? So you see, you go back to December 2020, they were just absolutely blowing it away. Then those comps, or those surprises to the positive, have slowly dwindled down. And June of 2022, they were actually minus 3%. And then another view of the same thing. The black bar is what analysts expected, and the blue bar is what happened. And then the table that just sort of confirms all that stuff. So last month, the end of last quarter, which was also the end of the fiscal year, for that quarter, the estimate was 229. The actual was 223. The surprise was minus 6 cents. So which way is your company trending in terms of hitting or missing? It's not like this is a super trend for Microsoft, right? It's only one quarter that they're down. But if we kind of take into account what's going on in the world with Papa Powell and raising rates, I'm sticking with the 988. If anything else, the mood of where we sit here in September is not positive, right? Now let's take a look at earnings revisions. So this is another sort of momentum indicator on that EPS consensus, which I believe that was $10.19 was the consensus, right? And now we're looking, how has that changed over the past several weeks? Well, the last 3 months, consensus is down 32 times. So it doesn't mean that they say Microsoft sucks. It just means that they're saying 32 analysts who follow the company closely are saying we're bringing our estimate down. You know, it was at $11. Now we're bringing it down. There's only one person who went up. So in my mindset, the 988 feels like a good number. It could even go lower than that, obviously, if we have more economic pain. Okay, so we've got our EPS number out of the way. Now we have to think about what sort of multiple will people pay for Microsoft. Okay, one place we can find this kind of information is on this valuation tab here in Seeking Alpha. And what's great about some of the stuff Seeking Alpha offers is their 5-year averages, which is mega important with the roller coaster we just went through, right? So 5 years ago, 2022 minus 5 is 2017, right? So we obviously had COVID with super high multiples, but we had time periods prior to COVID where, you know, maybe the market wasn't exactly normal compared to historical track records, but at least the 5-year data point gives us something to work with in an effort to project the future, right? So if we're going to go on forward, right, which is what we were looking for the end of the fiscal year. So forward multiple today is 23.56. Now, over the past 5 years, Microsoft has averaged a valuation multiple of 30.81. So we are definitely below where we've trended in the past. Now, the fork in the road here is sentiment, right? The market sentiment is totally different right now. In fact, it might be at all-time lows, certainly over the past couple years. So where do you think 23.56 falls next year? Higher or lower by the time we get to July? Is it more than 23.56? Does it go all the way up to the 5-year average? I don't believe that, but I do believe that the market is really at a very low point, and I would figure, my best guess, by July of next year, some of the things that are weighing down on the market will have gone away. Now, of course, there could be more bad news coming. I could be completely wrong, which won't be the first time, right? But for purposes of what I'm doing, I'm going to take this 23.56 and I'm going to round it up. I'm going to say valuation multiples are low right now. I don't think they get to 30.81, but I'm going to round this up to 26. And again, this is a dart throw. There's no fancy algorithm here. This is me trying to figure out where valuations will go. How much will people pay for future earnings? And I'm going to say 26. Now, flipping back to our estimates, let's see where we are today. So we talked about the 988. So this number's coming down, but the forward PE is 23.45, at least on the consensus level, and I'm moving that up to 26. If you multiply 26, right, fill in my number, to 988, you get a price, and I'm using a calculator off to the side, you get a price of $256.88. $256.88. Okay? Today we're at 240. Ironically, the 256.88, if this thing's still up, is not too far from this number that I did way back in August of 2020. I would say 240.32 is not a bad price to buy. I'm saying call it 257, which is plus $17 between now and June or July. Now there's another way to think about this number, the 257 that I just shared. Because we're using forward PEs, you could certainly make the argument that when you get to June of 2023, basically July of 23, when they come out with their earnings report, right? Fact of the matter is, in that July earnings report, they are going to offer guidance for the 2024 fiscal year. And that will become the new forward EPS estimate. Okay, so that begs a totally different question, which is, instead of using 988, what would you use for 2024's fiscal year? And Microsoft's a big enough company that they'll probably actually come out and say it. It's the expectation of a company of this size that they would come out and say it. Now, what's interesting is we still have 37 analysts who are projecting that far out. Right now, the low bar on that side is 1088. I'm going to take this, because it's so far away, I'm going to take this and make this an 11. I'm just going to take the low number for purposes of demonstration. I'm going to say by July, sentiment has changed. Microsoft comes out for 2024, gives a guidance of $11 per share. That's below the estimate. But if we took $11 a share and we multiplied that by our 26, which is still a relevant number, so 11 times the forward PE at the time of 26, that's a price of $286. So you start thinking of things that way, and you start pushing out into July, 286, you know, what is that? It's not quite 20%. So you figure 20% of this number is roughly $48. You add 48 to 240, you get 288. Now that all assumes, of course, that they come out with an $11 EPS guidance, and that my PE valuation, forward PE valuation multiple, comes in at 26. But in that case, you're at 288. So long story short, if you're following this in any way, hopefully you understood the math. I'm at 257 to 288 for Microsoft heading into July of next year. And with that in mind, if you circle it back to where my world stands, being heavy on the Qs, Microsoft's a huge part of the Qs. You could have upwards of 20% left to go for Microsoft over the next year. It's a green sign for the Qs, right? So that's one of the reasons that when you really look at the Qs, and you know, I get a lot of hate on investing in them right now because people are thinking short term and I'm thinking longer term. Microsoft is one example of a company that I think isn't woefully undervalued, but there's some juice to squeeze in that, particularly if you can hold for a year plus. All right, guys, so I'm saying 257 to 288 for Microsoft when they release their fiscal year earnings on July 2023. Let me know what you think. It's a dart throw, right? There was nothing complicated in here. There wasn't physics or algorithms or anything like that. The bigger a company is, the more fundamental analysis you can do. Let me know what your price target is for Microsoft down below. And before you go, don't forget to check out that special offer for Seeking Alpha. My affiliate link is in the description. Help support the channel. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll see you on the next video.